Hello again. Thank you so much for being here. It's my pleasure today to welcome our second honorary speaker, Emad Mostaque. Let me introduce Emad Mostaque a little bit. I'm sure already you know him. Lots of you know him, and he is a famous star. Emad Mostaque is a British entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of the well-known startup Stability AI. Under his leadership, Stability AI has popularized viral AI models like Stable Diffusion, fostered a community of more than 270,000 creators. It's huge. Developers and researchers, and helped establish several research hubs worldwide. His open access approach to AI seeks to democratize this powerful technology and place it in the hands of everyday people. Thank you so much, Emad. Rather than a few powerful corporations. This is incredible because it's very, very important for Morocco, for a country like Morocco and Africa. He is a problem solver at heart. Mostaque holds a BA and an MA in mathematics and computer science from the University of Oxford. He began his career in hedge fund management before working on multiple entrepreneurial endeavors. So he's very interested in the finance sides. He already did some work in Morocco and in Africa. With his keen ability to spot emerging market trends, he has built the only independent multi-model AI company in the world. This is incredible. Thank you so much, Emad, for being with us today. So I know you don't have slides, but I know you are a very good speaker, and the floor is yours. Tell us about the future of work. Tell us about your work. Tell us about the AI, this era of AI, and your work in finance. Tell us about Stability AI, these large language models. Tell us how we can fine-tune models, how countries like Morocco or Africa can benefit from these large models and the resources Stability AI or large companies has. So the floor is yours, Emad, and thank you so much for being here.
Jazakallah, Professor Mahmoudi. Salam, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real privilege. As Professor Mahmoudi said, very many fond memories of Morocco. When I was a hedge fund manager, I used to invest in emerging markets. So in Morocco, at Tijari Wafa Bank and a whole bunch of others. Many fond memories there. I think it's very interesting. You had the head of the stock exchange earlier, the future of work, the future of society, like how do we build and how do we make things more? As you kind of mentioned, I don't have slides because much of work seems to be presentations. It seems to be notes and reports, and it's very frustrating. I think it's because, like, when you look at the history of the region, the great emergence of abundance across the Middle East, Africa, was through the oral tradition. It captured the context, it captured the elements of this. And again, we see that in the culture and the history. I think when text came along, it was great because it allowed us to scale our societies. You could write down the stories that make us up, just like, we're here as people in AI, as Moroccans, as Bangladeshis, as humans, but it lost a lot of context. It's a very lossy information format in technical terms. You lost that context. And it reduced us all somewhat to numbers working in these big institutions. And that's what you had to do. And then you saw the guarding of technology, the guarding of information by the few. So a lot of the brightest Moroccans, unfortunately, had to leave Morocco to, achieve success elsewhere because there wasn't that opportunity there. And again, not because necessarily the government or other people didn't want it, just because the resources from the commodities to the information to these big companies were elsewhere. And there's a tendency to keep that control. I think where we are now is somewhere very interesting because the first era of the internet, it made the cost of creation go to nothing. You know, you can go on TikTok, you can kind of make all this, so consumption go to nothing. We can absorb Netflix all day long, Facebook and YouTube. This next era makes the cost of creation go to nothing. Like right now with Stable Diffusion, you've seen the hackathon, some people made wonderful localized kind of versions of images in seconds, right? You use ChatGPT and you can write entire sonnets or essays and it can augment us. But the focus has been somewhat wrong, and I think the nature of this technology has been somewhat misunderstood. So the focus is interesting because a lot of these breakthroughs came about with these big AGI labs, artificial general intelligence, you know, an AI that could do anything, an autonomous AI that could replace and be better than humans. And then scale was the prerogative. More giant supercomputers that no one could have access to, you know, especially in resource poor kind of nations, and hoarded by the few. Technology you couldn't access effectively on giant data sets, but those giant data sets were made up of the things that you and I put on the internet. And that hardly seems fair. I think the way that I thought about that is that's collective intelligence. So from Stable Diffusion to DALL-E to ChatGPT to Claude, they're all trained on the collective output of humanity, but it's on the internet, so it isn't very good. You know, the average quality of the internet isn't very high, as we all know. But that was kind of stage one. That was kind of see what works. And it was this autonomous concept. I think what's more interesting is collective intelligence and amplified human intelligence. You know, how can we use this technology to make us more? And how is that even possible? You know, why is it now? I think that you see the talent, but you see the restriction. Just like, you know, if I could see the audience now, which I can't with Zoom, one of the things I like to ask is, how many of you believe you are creative? Put up your hands. And usually 5% put up their hands, maybe 10% in a good day. And I ask, how many of you believe every child is creative? And everyone puts up their hands. I was like, how many of you were children once? And like 95% put up their hands. So I know the people aren't paying attention, the cyborgs from the future. Because something happens where we're told we can't, you know? I think a lot of people dialing in now is because you believe you can. You can use this technology to make a difference in your family, in your community, in your country, to the world. Because we see how fast this technology goes. And why does it go fast? And why is now a pivotal point is the question. Again, you have this paradigm of AGI and big and large scale and protection. You know, it's too dangerous to go out there. And that's because when you're thinking about an AI that will take over the world, you know, that's basically what AGI they're saying. You don't know what the goal is. What is the target? What's the real human impact? If you go on a journey across the desert and you don't know where you're going, then you're going to take lots of precaution, aren't you? And this was a lot of the AI safety debate. It was what could go wrong as opposed to what could go right. So we need to articulate why this technology is important, how it can get us, you know, to the promised land, to the positives. Will it make our lives better or worse? And there have been discussions about this and the ethics and others. How will it impact the way we work, the way we interact, the way we communicate? The reason this technology is impactful is because this technology can tell stories. So classical AI, as it were, like before 2017, before the last few years, was all big data and then extrapolation to target with ads or whatever. The future is like the past. In 2017, there was the seminal paper, Attention is All You Need, by a lot of now ex-Googlers. Again, Google's very imaginative, but somehow it can't seem to put the stuff out there. I'm sure they'll adjust that. Where something was proposed in that rather than all data being treated as one, what if you paid attention to the things that were important? And what if you applied large amounts of compute and mathematics to that to extract context, basically? And so that's what happened. It got scaled up to GPTs, and then that was transformer-based architecture, one type of architecture. Stable diffusion that our team built was something different, more physics-based processes. So you take an image, you destroy it, and then you figure out how to reconstruct it, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And the upshot was these amazing little files. So ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Claude, all these things are actually weights. So they're binary files like a codec. But what they really are is a universal translator. So in the case of Stable Diffusion, it's 100,000 gigabytes of text image pairs, with the output being a 2 gigabyte file, but now you can get under a gigabyte. And it can make any image you can imagine. if you put words in and squeeze images out. GPT-4 is probably 10 trillion words in 100 gigabytes. And we've all seen the capability of that. And those language models, let's say they may not be large in the future, and we'll get to that. Because what these models do is they understand context. They understand that missing element that we didn't have. That meant that our organizations that were built on PowerPoints and text and more, again, it's a very painful process. Any of you that have written a report or, anything like that, like this is being recorded automatically and it'll probably be transcribed by AI and be customized to you. This is the brave new world of the future. It's removing those barriers. It's allowing you to be creative and have flow. Those organizations were like slow, dumb AI. And so they treated us like numbers because you couldn't customize to every child for education or every human for medicine. I got into AI 13 years ago. Again, I was a hedge fund manager investing in Morocco, Bangladesh, technology companies, video games, when my son was diagnosed with autism. And they told me there was no cure and no treatment, nothing could be done. So I built a natural language processing team and I analyzed every piece of literature on autism I could find. I was like, there must be something. And then I did a biomolecular pathway analysis of neurotransmitters to repurpose drugs for him with medical support. And he went to mainstream school. It's an N of 1. But, what caused it? Our medical system isn't set up for the individualization of humanity. Every piece of paracetamol is 500 micrograms, milligrams, It treats us like numbers because that's all it can do. In mathematical terms, it seems ergodicity. 1,000 tosses of the coin is the same as 1,000 coins tossed at once, but we are individuals with our own context and our own stories. Now with this technology, we've captured context, and it's a wonder that it knows anything at all. Again, imagine that, a gigabyte, and it has all that context and knowledge in it. It's a universal translator. How does that work? When we've seen ChatGPT can rewrite something from a conservative perspective to a Republican perspective to the perspective of someone in Morocco, how does it know that? Because it's built up these contexts. You think about that for the future of work. It means the barriers to knowledge go down because we have a lot of global or national problems that lack local solutions. It lacks the amplified human intelligence because people still feel barriers. I think this is the amazing part of it because what we've seen this year is scaling. Giant supercomputers, people talk about 100 million billion. And, we have 10,000 odd GPUs, so we're right up there amongst the largest. Training models of every single type. But by releasing them open, what we've seen is this massive community kind of drive to optimize. We saw it with Stable Diffusion on image. We've seen it with Llama and others on language. And now we're at the point where models are going to the edge. A lot of the people were saying that electricity usage would go from 3 to 8% of all compute because of just data centers. But last week, gosh, is it last week? I don't even know anymore. This all goes too fast. The rate of papers is exponential. And, last week was NeurIPS. I think some of you were there, the 16,000 conference in New Orleans. The week before last, we released a 3 billion parameter model, Stable LM Zephyr, that almost matches Llama 70B, so a model 20 times the size. It runs 40 tokens a second on a MacBook Air with 8 gigabytes of VRAM and no GPU. And a human can only read at 8 tokens a second. We have upcoming models that are even smaller. They run on smartphones. And again, they match the biggest Llama model, which is up near ChatGPT 3.5 level. By next year, you'll have GPT-4 on your smartphone or an equivalent model. And then the people in the audience will take that and create because the barriers get removed. Because much of business, much of work is about how you communicate, how you collaborate, and how you scale. So what is the vision of the future, What is the vision of the future when the new version of Stable Diffusion we released? So a year ago, it was, medium quality, a minute an image. Earlier this summer, we got it down to 4 seconds an image with SDXL, and the images look good. The latest version does 300 images a second. 300. Our measure is now cats with hats. But if you try SDXL Turbo, you can literally talk to it, and the images emerge literally as you see it. Our new music model, Stable Audio, runs on the edge again. It can generate a 3-minute song in 12 seconds. Got real-time speech. We have a 3D model that can generate 3D meshes, stable 3D in a matter of a few seconds. And so almost every pixel is heading towards being generated. Language models are heading towards a GPT-4 level. I think what this means is that Africa and others can leap forward. And the nature of work, of communication, the barriers get removed because you can build. You can build things for yourself, your community, your society that you never had access to before because they were gated. I started Stability in 2020. Previously, I was working on a project called Symmetry, working the global broadband plan for refugees. So in Uganda, Kenya, and others, giving smartphones to refugees to help them coordinate because we see a climate crisis coming. But then COVID came, and I saw it as something like my son. So at Stanford, we launched Kayak, Collective and Augmented Intelligence against COVID-19. So with the WHO, World Bank, and UNESCO, let's make all the COVID research in the world free. That was COVID-19. And let's see if we can coordinate it with AI. So I was lead architect on that, put it together. Didn't work. Lots of bureaucracy. Maybe we made a bit of a difference. One of the telling things is that we were told that the AI that we were promised at the launch event was too dangerous. And that's when I realized that with this technology that can uplift everyone and be owned by everyone, there needed to be an open alternative. And so we incubated Luther AI, which did GPT-J, Neo, and X, and we spun that out as an independent 501c3 earlier this year to do language model evaluation and more. And we started sponsoring the whole space from data sets to models to more, and then building our own teams and our own capabilities and our own communities. So if you want bioscience, you can go and join Open BioML. We did AlphaFold doing MLP. Medarc is our medical community. Harmony is our music community. There's somewhere for everyone to go, and we hire mainly from our community. So 160 people building the top models of every type. And then the idea is these to go out and be customized to the world. Because the other part of Stability that we don't really talk about, we probably should more, is that we actually started out in that kind of refugee, emerging market, global south aspect. So a good chunk of the equity of Stability is for our charity Imagine Worldwide. So Imagine Worldwide is run by my friend Joe Wolf, also co-founder of Stability. We've been deploying tablets into refugee camps around the world. Again, I'm separate from that. I just build the models. And so it deployed the X Prize for Learning, which is a $15 million prize by Elon Musk, Tony Robbins, and others, for the first app that could teach literacy and numeracy without internet in 18 months. From the randomized control trials in Kenya and the Rohingya camps and others, 76% of kids gained basic literacy and numeracy in 13 months and 1 hour a day of education. So next year, this is scaling to eventually all the kids in Malawi, along with solar power, food, and high-speed internet. What will happen to the children of Malawi if they all get a GPT-4 level AI that looks out for them? And they get stable diffusion, stable 3D, and stable audio, and it talks to them and it understands them, and it shows, are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Are you dyslexic? And it's constantly adapting. That entire nation will change, and so will Morocco. And the models that will be there will be models built by Moroccans for Moroccans, because we will continue to push them down at the edge for the base models, and then you will take them, tune them, and make them bigger. Everyone will have personalized medicine. So again, I give the example of my son. In September, one of my loved ones had a misdiagnosis of pancreatic cancer. So 5% survival rate. For a week, I thought she was going to die. I had 1,000 GPT-4 agents analyzing every piece of literature on pancreatic cancer, all the trials, everything. And the loss of agency I felt, and many of you in the audience would have felt with multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, autism, any of these conditions, I got some of it back. Because what I wanted to create with the Kayak project was a comprehensive, authoritative, and up-to-date solution. You should never be alone. So we can talk about diagnosis, we can talk about treatment, but what about empathy? What about agency? And I think this is super important because Google has an amazing kind of thing in MedPalm, their medical AI. It overtook humans in diagnosis, but also scored higher than human doctors in empathy, because our medicine system has taken us down to numbers. What if we had people armed with this technology, an open model for cancer, that could go and help every family that's being diagnosed with cancer? Morocco, the world would be better with that, right? And again, we need to think about this amplification. We need to stop thinking of this as an AGI and more an extension of ourselves based on our collective knowledge and our specific context, to remove the barriers that frustrate us, to remove the things that take away agency. In work and your organizations, what you will feel is a disassociation of agency, responsibility, and accountability. You get some specifications to build something from somewhere here, and then they're not responsible for it, and then you can only work within certain bounds, and then large organizations ossify. Again, it's difficult because large organizations are based on text, and text is a lossy information format. Now all of our things will be recorded for better or for worse. Again, there's dangers to this technology, and we can generate and jam, bring ideas together better than anytime. So as we look at this technology, we should view it as an augment. And in fact, I figured out the best way to think about these new types of generative models. They're like very enthusiastic interns. So when they hallucinate, it's no wonder they know anything, they're just trying too hard. We should view it in that way, and we should pair them with memory. We shouldn't view them as a panacea and this AGI god. They are a part of the brain, just like classical models and databases are a part of the brain. And we can use them to extend our own minds. Again, if every child in Morocco had a tablet with an AI that had a Moroccan model that reflects Moroccan culture, how would it change? How difficult is it to build a Moroccan model? Not very much, because the base models are like basic graduates, and then you send them to finishing school, and they can learn accounting, they can learn local culture, they can learn everything else. And once a model is out there, it doesn't need to be trained again. Again, this is why open source is amazing for the environment as well. One of the points. You don't need to train models if you can train good base models of every type. You don't need to have giant supercomputers if the community takes and optimizes so they can run it on their own computers. And again, we're getting to the edge, good enough, fast enough, and cheap enough to change the nation, to change the world. So I think this is the promised land. This is the way we're going to, which is AIs that look out for each of us, that run on devices that we own, that represent every single person, company, country, culture. That's the intelligent internet. The current internet doesn't have much intelligence. Yeah, it's kind of dull. It's a bit stupid. I feel a bit dumber sometimes when I read a lot of the stuff there. I think that we all just want to do the best we can. And again, for those of you with children, we want to activate their potential. Our schools are petri dishes, childcare, social status game. We can do so much better. We know we can do better. You see amazing companies like Udacity, like Apple kind of building the foundation of this technology, like DeepMind, driving forward a lot of the innovations here. Making that accessible and open to everyone. Again, I think the talent in Morocco is just so immense that they won't have to leave. I think a lot of the smartest people can come home because this technology is the future of Morocco. Again, open models by Moroccans for Moroccans to transform all those things that cause so much frustration. And again, a lot of the frustration isn't because the people want it. It's just the nature of these slow dumb AIs that are our organizations. And now we have the opportunity to transform our lives, our kids' lives, and beyond. And do good things. Like when we get to real-time video, hopefully I get to remake Game of Thrones season 8. You can cast things in your kind of like the culture. It's going to be a crazy, I think, Star Trek type world as opposed to the Star Wars type world. Going to the AI Safety Summit, having these discussions, a lot of the thing, Stuart Russell and others, were about equity, distribution. And I think supercomputers will still be required for a bit, but fundamentally, you are what you eat. We are the only company in the world I know of that offers opt-out of our data sets. We made the data sets transparent. We fund data sets. We're looking to help countries build national open data sets and national open models for that reason. We think it stimulates innovation like you've never seen before. That's also why we went multimodal. I think the large part of the safety discussion is because of bad data. If you don't want it to know about bad stuff, don't teach it bad stuff. Treat it more like a reasoning engine. Train it on good quality data. Use the masses of people that want to help improve this. And then what will you get? You'll get a really aligned AI that can work for you, that you own. And that'll beat any other type of AI. But sometimes you'll want a consultant as well as your intern/graduate, right? So the proprietary models will still have their place, and they'll always be better in certain areas. And that's what I kind of see the future as. Personalized, individualized amplification of your capabilities, a removal of a lot of the frustrations that hold us all back. The ability to create anything, and creation beats consumption any day, that's happiness. And the future of work is one whereby there's this Japanese concept called ikigai. Do what you like, do what you're good at, and do what you believe you're measuring value and the other person is. And then the middle is happiness. I think we return a lot of agency to a lot of people. I think we can make the world happier with this technology. And I think the next few years are the takeoff point for it. Because again, it's good enough, fast enough, and cheap enough that all the amazing smart people listening to this can just take it and they can build stuff that can move their communities, their countries, and the world. We've seen how this spreads like nothing else. So I'm super excited to see again what's going to come in the next few years. I said super warm kind of wishes to everyone in Morocco. Any way we can help its stability, we'd love to. This is the next generation infrastructure. You had the World Bank meeting. Had some fantastic discussions with them about supercomputers everywhere. Now let's make it happen. Again, you have the talent, you have the capability, you have the people to build models by you, for you, to make a real difference in your lives and then the lives of others as well. You have a lot to share to the world. So I think that's coming up to the half now, you asked for. I think we're going to hand it over to questions now. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emad Mostaque, for this great word. You keep it just like that without presentation. This is incredible because this is the this is the origin of people talking to each other. So just with only words, without any graphics or any illustrations. So thank you so much for these thoughts. I learned a lot, and thank you so much for your mindsets, because lots of people are using technology, but a lot of people are using technology in with the wrong way, and there are people trying to do things the right way. And we believe that Stability AI and you are among them. So I have lots of questions, and I already asked you some questions. You answered them about startups and so on. But I have these questions from an anonymous attendee. I don't know why the name doesn't appear. Should Morocco's AI startups target big markets like US, or should they target local markets? In your point of view, in startups here in Morocco, a lot of startups, but something we tell the startups is have an idea that scale to the big markets. But there are some issues, some social issues, some challenges here in Morocco. We have to face them. So what's your thought about that?
Yeah, so a startup is a temporary structure you put in place until you find a business model, which is a repeatable process. So I think the most important thing for a startup is find your true believers in the problem that you're solving, who will speak on your behalf. Because if you build something that no one will speak to, you're not going to have a successful business, no matter what. So you may solve a problem that has a global remit and a global size, or you may solve a local problem that again has a remit. If you're using AI and generative AI, now is the time to build these solutions because the cost of building software is dramatically lower. Like if you use cursor.so, or Copilot or V-Naught from Vercel, you can build applications like that. You can scale these in a serverless way so that, Mistral came out last week and now it's basically free to run a GPT 3.5 level model, that you don't have to put that much down. You don't need the same level of capital infrastructure that you needed before to create a lot of these applications of every type. And there is demand. Everyone knows this is going to be a huge market. No one's not quite sure where. And so you can both leverage this technology to solve problems and help people with this technology. So really think about the user, think about the problem that you're solving, and think about, will they speak on my behalf? Can you get 100 true believers in your technology and your problem solving? And if that's international, it's international. If it's local, it's local. And again, why am I doing this? Is it mission? Is it this? Because that will force your alignment. Like we got to 1 million users on our Dream Studio platform in 25 days, which was a super fast time, one of the fastest in the world. We're no good at building consumer platforms relative to the models. And we looked at various business models, and now we have a flat membership for all our models. So, if you want to use our models, you just say, give us a grant, it's free, and it scales up depending on the size of your organization, because we build models of every type. This now allows us to release all our models and take advantage of our true believers, whereas before we were in competition with the people building on top of our platform. That wasn't nice. We tried to boil the ocean. Stay focused on the problem you're solving. Think about, do you have true believers? And then execute against that, you know? Because if they won't speak on your behalf, no one will. And that's how you kind of spread, no matter what. And that's the excellence that you should have. I think given the markets, again, with software in particular, you can scale global. But again, do you want to do that, or do you want to solve local problems? I think the government in Morocco is open. I think the companies are open. They all know now, even the sleepiest companies, this is the biggest thing. It's not like Web3 or Metaverse. And so you'll be surprised, I think, how you can fund that locally as well as globally.
Yeah, exactly. And I told you before your talk that there are lots of people that participated in the hackathon, and you just told them that they have to use these large models and turn out see how they can apply these large language models and tune them and fine tune them on the GPUs you are offering and the models you are offering. So my second question, I don't know if you already listened to the talk of the minister this morning. He asked a lot of questions, but one question which is very important because next year the labor code will be reviewed, and he asked what are the suggestions, what are the recommendations for a government in the developing country like Morocco. What are the things they have to change in the labor code, because things are changing in the environment of work, and all the enterprises and industries are moving and are changing, and people are working from home because of AI, because of technology and so on. What are your thoughts about that?
So, Morocco has a young, dynamic population, but this is also a bit of a threat because this technology, again, it's like a very talented, enthusiastic graduate, right? And so I think governments in general need to look at what are the jobs of the future and create environments that are conducive to that. So the UNDP Accelerator Labs, the UK, we've had like regulatory sandboxes to allow for innovation. Again, Morocco is kind of a wonderful place. The government works hard, the people work hard, but just like anywhere, it's substitute to institutional bureaucratic malaise. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Morocco to upgrade itself and its systems. I think the government should embrace this technology and think of it like infrastructure. Again, there's fantastic infrastructure across the board, invested in Morocco Telecom, amongst other things previously. But you need to have national data sets, national models, and then give the entrepreneurs the ability to create jobs for Moroccans by Moroccans. I think this is the key thing. Again, you look at the relative level of education and achievement, there's no reason that you can't have local companies going global augmented by this technology, particularly in kind of the Francophone and other countries. So I would say infrastructure, I would say embrace the technology with, again, regulatory support, with infrastructure as data sets and national models. And I would say as well, like encourage entrepreneurship, because the nature of information work will change. The ability to scale has increased. And again, I think Morocco is well placed for that. And the governments that embrace this technology will massively do well for their people versus those that do not. Because again, I think it is, what is the promised land? What do you want the future of Morocco to be? And then who's driving that? It has to be the innovators working with the government, working with others, and everything needs to be aligned to that. So let's get on the same page and think, what is the vision of Morocco in the future, and how can we use this technology to benefit us and the next generation? I think, again, otherwise there will be some real problems, and every government in the world is facing this. Education, healthcare, jobs, they will get changed and adjusted by this technology. We're not sure how. So let's stay nimble.
Great. Something countries like Morocco, I think in all Africa and the developing countries is training a lot of coders, lots of coders, maybe from the age of 18 or something like that. They are training a lot of coders because there are industries that are seeking for web developers and all that stuff. What are your thoughts? Because these large language models are getting better and better in coding, proposing code, and replacing coders and so on. I don't know if there is right way to go training a lot of coders. What are your thoughts about that?
I think the way to think about this is raising the floor. So when I started coding, gosh, 23 years ago, we didn't have GitHub. We got Subversion a few years later. We did assembly for voice over IP software. Now coding is like Lego blocks. And ultimately, computers can talk to computers better than humans can talk to computers. So we have a code model coming up that's amazing and other things. And again, you can run it on the edge. The nature of coding will change, the nature of development will change, and the floor will lift. And I think, again, this is why it's incumbent upon the government and teams to embrace this, to expect more of their coders. MIT has had studies like this GitHub showing 50% or more improvements in productivity and reduced errors when you embrace the technology. So I think that you need to go to another level of abstraction, and you can go from beyond web developers to app developers to more. And I think those that have that mentality, embrace the technology, will massively outperform those who don't. But again, this is the nature of technology. Like Excel didn't get rid of the accountants, right? And we adapt. Like when we first did the image generation 18 months ago, everyone was like, wow. Now it's like, of course you can make any image of any type in a few seconds, right? We will create new jobs. We will create new things. We will adapt. Just like many of us remember Flash. You remember Macromedia Flash was the internet? How many people still know Flash? That was lots of jobs. You go to different frameworks and other things. But I do believe that the average output of an individual can increase with this technology. It can help. It can bring more Moroccans into this area. But expect more, I think. I think we should challenge ourselves to expect more. Because now we have this amplification of our capabilities. And again, I think this is where government and industry and communities such as MoroccoAI have to come in and say, there are no programmers as we know it in 5 years. You don't need to make HTML, but you can make so much more. So why don't we embrace that right now and have the right skilling program that people become amplified intelligence natives?
Yeah, this is incredible, and lots of work have been done in education here in Morocco, and we are still doing a lot of efforts in that side. Maybe my next question is about healthcare, because this is an issue in Africa and in Morocco as well. You already said some word about the applications of AI in healthcare and the advantages of AI in that side, and all the benefits. What is your message to, maybe now you are talking to the technologists and the people doing AI and so on, but what is your message to the doctors? Maybe this video will go to other doctors, visualized with other doctors. What is the right message to the doctors? Young doctors, I mean, a lot of people right now are doing medicine and technology, kind of mix. What is your word to that people?
So I think, again, a lot of all the doctors we know, they start out very enthusiastic, and a lot of doctors I know are very grumpy. They just want to help people. But again, system gets in their way, or they're overwhelmed because we don't have enough doctors in Morocco, across Africa, kind of other things, right? How do we do more, and how do we not get burned out? And again, this is where we need to really think about how can we adapt to use this technology to achieve more, to allow more people to support the health of the Moroccan people and beyond. You break apart the individual parts of what your day looks like. What is the infrastructure we can introduce here? Because now we have the building blocks that are coming again to the edge. And I think edge is so important, because how many people in Morocco have a smartphone, right? Versus kind of this other stuff. Having language models come into the smartphone, vision models and others. What are the things that we can build that can scale that up, make the invisible visible, have a far richer amount of data? Like when you look at clinical trials, it's just checkboxes. You could have a conversation like this, right? The richness of that data and people to people is huge. Potential health outcomes. There's a lot of health outcomes as a result of we just don't catch things fast enough, even if we know what's happening. We don't have the feedback loops to people to help them along. And then this is before the gigantic, again, supercomputer things again. Think about how it can amplify you, the people around you, and make your processes better to help the people. And so that's what I kind of really recommend here, which is the only way you really do that is just embracing the technology and playing with it. I think the people at the hackathon probably had a whale of a time. And what we're finding is that the smartest, most motivated people in the world know this is the biggest thing, and they think about it all the time because it's like magic, right? And again, they still think, many of them, that this is only kept for the few and you need an OpenAI or Claude subscription forever. I'm saying that's not the case. This stuff is coming to your mobile. It's coming to every Moroccan. It's coming to every hospital. And so hopefully the government can open that in the appropriate way, because obviously we need to protect the people as well. But the opportunity set of that is so huge, in that maybe you will have doctors and then doctors helpers, community helpers, and more. Don't think of this as autonomous agents. Think of these as amplifying agents at all times. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. So augmenting doctors, not replacing them, and because we don't have many doctors. Let me finish, but by this last question about ethical concerns of AI. We have seen the advantages of AI, but we have seen this use of AI in wars. We have seen this use of AI for bad things. And what are your thoughts about the usage we are doing with AI today?
Yeah, so I think that this technology, again, it's an amplification of us, and that is good and ill. And I think the vast majority of people will use this to make the world better, and some of them will not. This is inevitable. We already see fake news, we see deep fakes. There are 56 elections next year with 4 billion people voting. And we really can't believe what we see or hear. My view was that open infrastructure is safer. Our systems run on Linux, and open source and MySQL and more. Versus Windows still has a decent amount of bugs, right? So I think that what we need to do is we need to build mitigations. I think we need to really think about as a society, what does it look like as the nature of work and more changes? And really try to unify what our vision of the positive externalities of this is, and then judge our safety and ethical discussions against that. Because again, if you live a nice life in the West, your considerations will be very different to if you're a doctor that has to look after 10,000 patients and you want to help them, but you simply cannot, But at the same time, I don't think we can be too foolhardy about deploying this into systems that affect real lives. That's why I hope we can get on the same page around this. So it's not easy, I tell you, man. Like the number of discussions I have, I'm like, oh man, I wish I studied ethics and kind of more. We can't even get to an agreement what ethics is. But again, this isn't stopping. Like you will see models of every type from everyone, open source, closed source, the amount of capital going into the space, the race condition. We've got to do the best we can to steer it. And again, that's why I think people like MoroccoAI will help, again, the people of Morocco, that community, because you're at the very edge. And I think more and more of the smartest Moroccans will come back, and I hope that replicates around the world. But again, with a view to helping people and uplifting and solving the problems that have frustrated you for so long, as opposed to exploiting people and taking advantage of people. Again, amplify, not automate, look for social goods, not financial. You can get both, that's even better. So like I said, let's build open systems to mitigate. Let's have transparency. Like I said, things like a lot of the alignment debate, all that, open data sets solves a lot of that. If these things are going to amplify and augment us, let's know what's inside them, right? Let's know what is there, just like you would ask for the CV of a person that you employ. Don't use black boxes.
Thank you so much. With these words, Emad Mostaque, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for accepting to talk to MoroccoAI, to Morocco, to Africa. And we hope very, very soon welcoming you to Morocco, visit our very beautiful cities, and maybe generate some images from Morocco, from the atmosphere and the images of Morocco. I think you already visited Morocco, and we will very, very happy to welcome you.
I'll be delighted. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, and bye-bye.